Everybody's talking about BPC-157, but the peptide that I'm most interested in as a veterinarian treating dogs with musculoskeletal disease is actually TB500. So is it the real deal or just another peptide with more hype than evidence? Well, TB500 is a synthetic version of a part of a naturally occurring protein called thymosin beta 4, or TB4, which is found in many animal tissues and is involved in wound healing and cell migration and blood vessel formation and tissue repair. And unlike BPC-157, which originated from research into gastric proteins, TB500 comes from a protein that's naturally involved in tissue regeneration throughout the body. So we're typically going to use it in patients with cranial-cruciate ligament disease and tendon injuries, iliopsoas strains, biceps tenosynovitis, dogs that are sporting dogs or agility dogs in recovery, and postoperative healing. The theory is that TB500 helps cells migrate to injured tissues and stimulates the healing process throughout the entire body. So what makes TB500 different than BPC-157? I would say BPE-157 is for local healing and TB500 is for systemic healing. BPC-157 is often promoted as targeting specific injured tissues, while TB500 is believed to have broader effects on cell migration and tissue repair throughout the body. However, this distinction really comes from laboratory and animal research rather than clinical trials that are done in dogs. So what does the science actually show? This is where things get a little interesting. The underlying thymosin beta 4 protein has a much larger research literature than BPC-157 has. And researchers have demonstrated that there is improved wound healing and enhanced angiogenesis, improved tendon healing, improved cardiac repair in animal models, and reduced inflammation in various experimental settings. In fact, thymosin beta 4 has been studied by multiple independent research groups worldwide and has been investigated in human clinical trials for eye and wound healing applications. So here's the catch though, most of that research is on full-length thymosin beta 4, not TB500, and that's a huge distinction because TB500 is a fragment derived from that larger protein. We do not know with certainty that the fragment produces all of the same biological effects as that complete molecule does. And what about dogs specifically? This is where the evidence completely falls apart. For naturally occurring orthopedic disease in dogs, we currently lack large randomized clinical trials, standardized dosing studies, long-term safety studies, and FDA-approved veterinary indications are lacking. So in other words, TB500 may be promising, but it remains largely experimental in canine medicine. The question about TB500 being stronger than BPC-157, nobody really knows. There are no high-quality canine studies directly comparing TB500 alone, BPC-157 alone, or TB500 plus BPC-157. That popular healing stack combining both peptides comes mostly from anecdotal reports in biohacker communities and not controlled veterinary research. Well, is it safe? The safety data in dogs are pretty limited. One theoretical concern that TB500 is that it promotes angiogenesis, the formation of new blood vessels. And while this may help healing, we also know and question whether angiogenesis promoting compounds could potentially influence tumor biology. Currently, there's no evidence proving that TB500 causes cancer in dogs, but long-term safety studies are still unanswered. And the biggest veterinary concern, honestly, is that the peptide itself, it's the product. Most TB500 used in dogs comes from research chemical suppliers, online peptide vendors, and compounded sources. So purity, potency, sterility, and consistency can vary dramatically because these products are not FDA-approved veterinary medicine. So what do I tell my clients? I tell them, hey, TB500 is biologically more plausible to me than many regenerative therapies because it's based on naturally occurring repair protein with a substantial scientific literature. But promising biology and proving clinical benefit are not the same thing. So for now, the strongest evidence for canine recovery still supports the old standard of rehabilitation and weight management and appropriate surgery when indicated in physical therapy and evidence-based pain management. TB500 may eventually earn a place in canine sports medicine, but we're still waiting for the clinical studies to tell us whether it truly works in dogs and if there are any long-term side effects that we have to worry about. TB500 is not snake oil. It's also not a proven miracle. And right now, it's the best described, in my opinion, as a promising experimental therapy operating ahead of the evidence. Wait for the next video on another peptide use in dogs.